They had to make an incredibly difficult decision today for a change in leadership of our football program.
5 games into his 8th season as Wisconsin's head coach, Paul Chryst was informed that the team was moving on from his leadership. Chryst led the Badgers to 67 wins, 3 Big Ten West titles, and a 6-1 bowl record. But recently, that success hit a speed bump. UW is 15-10 in their last 25 games, and just 5-12 against teams ranked in the top 25 since 2018. And after back-to-back blowout losses, Chris McIntosh decided it was time for a change.
This is a decision that's based upon where we're at as a program. And, you know, I think it's important to make a decision when I feel it's the right time, given the circumstances of where we're at as a program right now. And so it's a tough time to make a transition. But I felt it was the right time.
He's Jim Polzin from the Wisconsin State Journal. I'm Zach Hanley. This is the Badger Blueprint. Mid-season shakeup isn't normal for Wisconsin, especially because a week ago it felt like Chryst wasn't on the hot seat. What changed for Mac, and did this move shock you 5 games in?
Shocked might not be strong enough. I asked that with Chris McIntosh last Wednesday, so 4 days before Paul Chryst was fired, and McIntosh gave a vote of confidence to Paul Chryst. He said he was a guy that he'd worked with for 7 years. He described previous ruts Wisconsin had been through and how they'd always come out the other side, and made it very clear, at least to me, that Paul Chryst was the guy that was going to get this through. And 4 days later, he fired him. I realize a lot happened in between there, especially an embarrassing home loss. But yes, I'm stunned. This is not how Wisconsin typically operates, not how I expected Chris McIntosh to operate.
The pride of Tony, Wisconsin is now the new head Badger for at least 7 games. Jim Leonard was named the team's interim head coach, and he is Wisconsin football. Leonard was a walk-on that turned into a 3-time All-American and one of the best defensive backs to ever play in Madison. This year is his 7th as a member of the coaching staff, and as far as his new role, well, he says he's ready.
To have an opportunity to be in this position is not one that I take lightly, and am very excited for. Very mixed emotions at this point, but I feel like I can take this opportunity and help this place grow.
Tough situation to take over, but big picture-wise, is the job his if he wants it?
Yeah, I would think so, Zach. You know, I think you don't make this move unless there's a guy like Jim Leonard sitting there who's probably ready, who Chris McIntosh considers ready to take this job. And I'd be surprised if he's not the coach in the opener for 2023. I realize that Chris McIntosh has already fooled me once, so he could fool me twice. But I don't think you judge Jim Leonard by wins and losses down the stretch here, because you're putting him in an incredibly difficult position.
The biggest challenge for Leonard now isn't game planning or figuring out who's calling what on Saturday. It's getting his players to compartmentalize their emotions with what happened. Paul Chryst was a huge reason why they came to Wisconsin, and now he's not with the program anymore.
Anytime you go through something as a family, I mean, you all feel responsibility. I don't think that this should at all fall on any one person's shoulders. I mean, I think that's why this group is upset.
Obviously, the situation is not easy, and nobody wanted to see Coach Chryst go. So I think for me personally, it's fuel. You know, like Torch had mentioned, it's really on us.
You can't really imagine what it's been like for those guys this week, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, you sometimes forget that these are 18 to 22-year-olds, and their emotions are raw. And not just the players either, but it's the coaching staff too. Some of those guys have been with Paul Chryst for a long, long time. So I think part of them is feeling for their colleague and worrying about him. I think a Monday, the first 24 hours on the job for Jim Leonard, a lot of that was spent just dealing with emotions. Forget the X's and O's, forget Northwestern, forget scouting reports. It's just trying to get this team in the right place emotionally, and that's not an easy task for Jim Leonard.
Now, a move like this can go one of 2 ways. They can either rally around each other and turn the season around, or not. And Leonard knows it's time to prove what kind of team they want to be.
There is no special talk. There is no players-only meeting. There is only coaches-only meeting, right? It's getting it done at this point, right? We know the issues, right? We know we have to play better.
And coming up, there is still a game to play. Why a trip to Northwestern is always a tough out. More Badger Blueprint next.
The playing a team at home that's always given us trouble at their place, and we gotta bring our A game going in there.
That team is Northwestern, a program that's been a thorn in Wisconsin's side since the mid-'80s. In the last 31 meetings, the Badgers have won 16, the Wildcats have won 15. And recently in Evanston, where the two play Saturday, it's been bad for the Badgers. They've lost 6 of 7 at Ryan Field. Jim Leonard never won there as a player. Will he start off his head coaching career with a win there?
This is a tough one to predict. I mean, I think most weeks have been tough to predict. This is really tough. I'm going to say Wisconsin wins 14-13, but it's all based on how they are emotionally.
I think the guys rally around each other and get it done as well. It's probably going to be an ugly win, but a win they desperately need. Badgers by 5. And that's it for this week's Badger Blueprint. Thanks for watching.